Today's youth need teachers, volunteers, and most of all, well, they need you. I'm Doug Edwards, and I'm going to be talking with real youth mentors and students to give you the knowledge you need to be the best youth worker possible. This is Youth Worker on Fire. Welcome back, Youth Worker Nation. This is Doug Edwards with Youth Worker on Fire. Today is episode 2 with Dr. J. Strack. You're going to love it.
Well, I never will forget a call from a young man, he was on staff in Tampa. African-American young guy, dynamic young guy. He was going to Southeast Christian University over in Lakeland. It's really quite amazing, what all's happening there. There's just a lot of good things happening around the state. You look at Palm Beach Atlantic's just exploded. They're just got such a buzz about them. And then every time I hear something about Southeast, they're just some great things are happening. But there's Trinity in Jacksonville, very distinctive school. And the thing I love about Trinity in Jacksonville is they take a lot of kids kind of like me, some of them. They try to make room for somebody that may need a little extra help along the way, but may have an upside, Anyway, he called me and he said, I've pulled over, and this show you how long ago this was, and I'm on a payphone, and I'm coming back from the Youth Pastor Summit. I was there. He said, I want you to know that I have had in my briefcase 2 weeks my resignation from youth ministry to give to my pastor. He said, my church, I'm not very appreciated much. Everybody talks about wanting to care about the students, but they don't give a nickel for it. Nobody helps us. Can't even get a room. It's just discouraging. And some of the people that I meet with kind of tell me I'm wasting my life, that you got to be a pastor, youth ministry doesn't. And I never will forget, here is this young guy literally weeping on the side of the road and said, Jesus has been in the car with me going home. And he said, now listen, I called you to this, and I'm going to use you. And to be able to keep up with him through the years, watch him through the years. He's now moved on. He's out of state, serving in a church. But, that was one of the very first times I went, this isn't just cool, but, this isn't just helpful. This isn't just, obviously you go, but this is a good thing. But when it really got real personal, and we see that a lot. We also see it when we see some churches working together in a city for the first time, and we don't need to wait till there's a shooting or there's a terrorist attack or, a flood or something to bring us together. If we could do that in the body, with students and youth pastors working together to make a difference in a city. Well, there was a time, Doug, where I got tired of being the youth guy. In other words, I always had I've been published some 30 books and edited 3 Bibles. But they're all student Bibles. True Love Waits Bible, the first big major youth Bible, the Transformers student Bible, and now our Student Leadership Bible, So we've done edited 3 Bibles, which is a huge process, as you know. But yet they were all youth. And 99% of the books I'd written were Dad, Do You Love Mom? Why Do Good Kids Do Bad Things? Drugs and Drinking, the All-American Cop-Out. And then another revision of Drugs and Drinking, What Every Parent and Teen Should Know. Purity Matters. And then I began to branch out a little bit and do Everything Worth Knowing I Learned Growing Up in Florida. Then I had, but then they wanted me to do critical issues that young people are facing. Our curriculum. We have probably now 11, 12 curriculum pieces, which is through student leadership, and the Lift Tour gets a lot of exposure. And it's good stuff, and I'm proud of it, and it's good for youth groups to use. But everything almost was family or the youth guy. I was the youth guy. And yet I was speaking at the Air Force Academy. I was speaking at NASA. I was speaking for Johnson & Johnson. I was speaking for General Motors. I was at Oxford. I was the youth guy. And I kind of went through a time where I went, wouldn't it be great if, I don't know if I want to be the youth guy anymore. I never will forget is only your wife can do, after you want to just I say, would you please just go to something that you're supposed to be at, leave me alone. But she just got on a whiteboard and she said, all right, let me get this straight. Now, you started speaking to kids. Then you got to speak in all these schools. And because you spoke in all the schools, you get to go to all the universities. And because you were doing all those schools and universities, you got invited to do something for Fellowship of Christian Athletes at Black Mountain. And then because you were doing those things, Tom Landry heard you and invited you to speak to the Cowboys. And because you spoke to the Cowboys, you got to speak to the Cowboys a lot through the years. And then the Texas Rangers, and then when I lived in Dallas, the Dallas Mavericks. Well, now, you get 20 plus invitations a year to speak to NFL, NBA, et cetera. All that came because you're the youth guy. And you're just growing old with your generation. You're just getting older with those kids, so you know them at kind of every step of the way,
Yes.
And then she started saying, and then because you've learned how to communicate with kids, you can go to the Georgia Dome or the Olympic Village Stadium in Russia, or you feel comfortable doing all those. You're not. It doesn't matter what the venue, the roller coaster going on, nonsense going on, it doesn't bother you. You just get up and do your thing. She mapped out, made me feel like a yin yang, as only wives can do, for the glory of God. No, but anyway, they seem to enjoy that, though, something a little more than they should. But anyway, and the bottom line was, I'm looking at this thing, and she said, you're in a position you can do about anything you want to do. But you made a promise, Lord, if you'll let me do these things, I will always, as long as kids will listen. I've heard you say, Lord, I'll do this. It's up to you. You release me when they're not listening, when I don't have that on. And for some reason, they still, the number one thing we hear back, the number one feedback we get from student leadership. Now, this says as much about Brent, who's such a, he's dynamic communicator and the teacher, PhD, and author, quite a thinker. This says as much about him as it does me, and it says a lot about our other people that speak. But the number one request we get for the student leadership programs from teenagers is we want more sessions. Now, when teenagers are wanting more sessions, and so we do 101 here in Orlando, San Antonio, San Diego. That's our entry level. That's our first base. And then the next year, and that's where we introduce them to the rules and tools of leadership, and time management, goal setting, people skills. That's where we introduce them to apologetics, biblical worldview, and where we try to show them the value of edutainment, how to do some really fun, cool things, but yet while you're learning, make it edutainment. Yeah. So then the next year we go to D.C., where we do a White House briefing, Pentagon briefing, congressional briefing, Supreme Court briefing. And then, we go to Arlington, and we go to the Ford's Theater, and we go to the Holocaust Museum, Smithsonian's, the National Press Club, et cetera. Then the next year we do London, Oxford, Normandy, Paris. Then the next year we do Israel, Jordan. Then we do China, we do Africa. So all these amazing experiences that these kids in these places around the world are going, we love all that. We want more session time. We want more where we're in our journal, we're in our syllabus, and we're being challenged. So I have to kind of keep that promise. But when my wife got through putting everything on the board for me to see, I guess because of my learning disabilities, I had to see it in a way that she knew I could get it. I'm going, Lord, thank you that I get to be the youth guy. And so my message just really kind of changed through the years, and now I'm saying to youth pastors, and Doug, you're a great example of this. If somebody can do youth ministry, let me give an example. We had there's a youth pastor that I've known for 14 years, and now he feels like he wants to pastor. And he'll be a great, you just know this guy, you know. When you're around people and watch them through the years, this guy's going to be an anointed, effective, highly effective pastor. But he's had two churches that won't take him seriously because he's just been youth pastor. And they're talking to guys. I said, tell me who all you're talking to. And they mentioned a couple guys that are pastoring smaller churches in a county seat town, but he's been the lead pastor. Now, this is this explains my personality, and may everybody, once they hear this statement, will figure out why I have to move every couple days and travel, not stay anywhere very long. But I said, ma'am, let me be honest with you and you with your committee now. So put it on speaker. I said, folks, this young man that you're not even considering will have more people in the bathroom at some of his event at one moment than some of these people have all year long. Now, I want you to think about what you're saying. If you're a youth pastor in a significant sized church, you have to, number one, you're shepherding 100 students, 90 students, 300 students, 500 students, 70, whatever it is, depending on the size of the church. They have 100 volunteers or 50 that they have to train the trainer, teach them how to teach. You shepherd those. When you're the youth pastor, you're the shepherd. You know best what's going on in their marriage. You know best when your workers, who's lost their job, who's not doing well. You're the pastor. You help the pastor, no doubt, and the church minister to them, but you're the point guy for ministry. You're the point of the spear. So a youth pastor's been a youth pastor for 10 years. He would have done more funerals, more wedding counseling, more crisis counseling, more training, and he can stand and communicate the Word of God to a generation that, and I used to say this, Doug, I can't even say it anymore, but I'm going to use it today since you're here, since I can't use it. I said, this generation has the attention span of an AM radio station on scan. Well, today nobody even knows what a radio station is. It's satellite radio. Right. They have no idea what the scan thing is. I mean, so now you say has the attention span of a gnat. But so for somebody who's been in youth ministry 15 years, has got more leadership, management experience, more counseling, more grit, more tenacity. And I'm not minimizing other people's ministries, and I'm not trying to minimize anybody else's call. I'm certainly not trying to minimize somebody that may be pastoring in a church that's a smaller church. I mean, obviously, that's my start. And by the way, that's America. We minimize that. We've minimized the Church of America. Most of our churches are small. Yeah. But I'm trying to make a point in favor of the youth pastor, not putting anybody else down. Right. But don't ever, but I think a lot of times we do that to ourselves. I just confessed. I'm tired of being the youth guy. Yeah. I'm tired of always having to write about a youth-related issue. Man, now I look up and I go, man, I can't believe people still want to know what I think about that. Right. And by the way, what do I think about? So that's kind of how our message is trying to change also to youth. If you can do this well, you can do anything.
If he can't use the church to say some things and people that are of the faith, he's not limited, and he'll use somebody else.
Big time. Well said.
And so there's a lot of learning to be learned by us from people that do not have a relationship with Christ. We may be able to lead them there someday, but they have wisdom, and Scripture always talks about wisdom, and it comes from different places because God is not limited.
Big time. Yeah. But he also says we have not. We ask not. And the reason some of us don't have more wisdom, I don't think we ask for it. And then when we ask for it, we got to use it. You got to be a good steward. It's like walk in the light. Yeah. If I don't walk in the light I can't be going, Lord, what am I supposed to do? Say, well, man, first of all, you asked me what to do about this, and I told you. That would have got you here. You asked me what to do about this, and I told you that would have get you here. I've asked you about it, and that would get you here. But no, you want me to show you all the way here. You're not even walking in the light I've given you. So I think the Lord's a good steward. We got to walk in the light we have before he gives us more. We got to use the wisdom he's given us. We don't want to be like the old farmer and the young guy's trying to graduate college and he's out selling farm seed and equipment and trying to convince this farmer with a brand new catalog that this is what he needs on how to be a better farmer. And the old farmer looks at him and says, son, listen to me. I already know far more than I'm doing. I already know far more than I'm doing right now to be a better farmer. So I'm not anxious to buy a bunch of new stuff that's going to tell me even more so all the things I'm not doing to be a better farmer. So I really think there's a lot of wisdom to that. We know certain things we're not even using, but yet we keep asking for
And people
more and
use
more wisdom.
scriptural principles without even knowing because they're the right principles.
Right, big time. Sometimes they don't even realize it's
That's right.
spiritual. Yeah.
Yeah.
We went through that at the University of Beijing. We were working on a partnership with them, and where they were going to send Chinese students here, and we were taking our students there. And, they kept saying, well, what about, and, we do a biblical worldview. So I said to them in deference, because it's an atheistic country, but yet I still want to introduce them to things of faith. I came up with the idea to use cultural literacy. And that is the list of things that you must know to do business and to do life in the West. So if you want to know what we think, so I came up with some 200 phrases, and I say I came up with it. A lot of it's in cultural literacy, a remarkable resource, by the way. But go the second mile. I'd ask them, what does that mean to go second mile? Oh, go second mile. 1 mile's not enough. Must go second mile. Must do more. All right, but what was the background of that? Who taught that? Jesus taught that. The soldiers came along and forced them to carry their backpack. And they'd walk that 1 mile, which was the law, and then they'd throw it down, they'd spit, they'd curse, But Jesus said, no, don't just carry it 1 mile, carry it 2. And ask them about how they're doing and how their family's doing, and tell them that what they're doing is wrong, but they're just obeying orders, and begin to help them realize, Yes. And I said, what does this mean? My cup runneth over. If I say to you, you say, oh, how's your room? How, because they're very gracious. The Chinese were very brilliant, very gracious. And I said, well, what if I were to say, yeah, the meal was great, but, the meal was so good, my cup's running over. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Oh, that's a bad thing. Because it makes a mess. Could get on your clothes, could ruin the, carpet, whatever. Oh, it's a bad thing. It's not good stewardship. It's not good business. Too much waste, And I said, well, but in the Bible, that's a good thing. And I just used 4 or 5 examples to say to them, and I gave them the phrases. What does Easter mean? What does nativity mean? What does crucifixion mean? What does the Passover mean? What does David versus Goliath mean? I mean, because your Chinese students that want to do business with the West are going to hear all these terms. So there's always a way, but I found that it's true in the States as well. There's a lot of there's not a lot of cultural literacy. Yeah. They don't know where all these things come from and even what they mean. The older you get reflective, even whether people want you to or not. Yes. And I always tell people, one thing we got to all remember about ourselves. It's true if you're the young hot shot, and it's true if you're the older guy now. Mm-hmm. We all think more of ourselves than we should. So I mean, we look at all the things, and people say a lot of nice things about Student Leadership University and the Lift Tour, which has now grown to 23 cities, Brent, and now we've just brought on a gifted young man named Jeff Wallace to really help us with those cities. But we're now I think it's grown to 20. Well, not I think it's now going to be 23 cities across the country, and so the Lift Tour is a Friday, Saturday event. And they can go to SLU Lead or Student Leadership University.net. Those are a way to find out about all our programs, including the Youth Pastor Summit. But we do the Lift Tour, we do the Youth Pastor Summits, and then we do our SLU programs. And for us, SLU is the mothership, because we don't just get 30 minutes or 45 minutes at a time. We get to, for 4 days, try to give your students a 20-year head start and your workers a 20-year head start. Yes. And we've now had, it's right at, Doug, over 188,000 who've gone through the various programs. Now that's now counting the Lift Tour. Right. And now the Lift Tour is getting so big, we're adding 30,000 to that a year. So it's, it's kind of, but it's back we started it with 50. Yeah. And then the next year we had 55 to do student leadership. And then, of course, the summit started and all the other things. So the best way I know how to describe Student Leadership University, and the best way I know how to describe the Youth Pastor Summit, and the best way I know how to describe what we're trying to do online is the Kevin Durant story. how did Golden State get Kevin Durant? Okay? Now, it's a fascinating story. And what happened was, and there were a lot of very impressive teams offering the world to Kevin Durant, but what Golden State did is they gave him a pair, when they met with him, of virtual reality goggles. I believe Google Glass, they gave him virtual reality goggles. He put them on and immediately saw himself on the Golden State Bridge. Wind blowing and looking down and the beautiful scene and a little sway because it's cable. Golden Gate Bridge is cables because the wind's so powerful at the top, there has to be a little give. Yeah. But yet the bottom is buried deep, many feet underground because the tides are so it's got to be firm but flexible. Great example of what parenting is and what we need to be. You got to be firm, but there's got to be a little give, and no matter how firm it, because if it was all firm and no give here, it would break. Because the wind's going one way, the current's going another. So he's standing on the Golden Gate Bridge. He sees Alcatraz. He sees the boats. Next thing he knows, he's hand gliding over Pebble Beach in the scenic 7-mile stretch. And then he's over Napa Valley. And then he's at Silicon Valley walking in and seeing Google and Cupertino. I think, Apple, Cupertino, that's the mothership, So he sees Silicon Valley, he sees Napa Valley, he sees the redwood forest, he sees the beauty of San Francisco Harbor. So all of a sudden, he doesn't have to imagine. He sees himself in those places. And it's breathtaking, and it's mind-blowing, and it's unbelievable, all right? And then he's sitting on the bench because of these goggles, listening to Steve Kerr, the coach, who's got, 4 championship rings himself, with Chicago and San Antonio, talking about how do we defend against Kevin Durant. Actual part of the locker room talk he gave to his team before the playoffs. And he said, and Durant sees himself sitting on the bench in the Golden State with a jersey on. And he said, guys, this team we're about to play has got 2 of the 5 top players in the NBA. The guy we're going to worry about is KD. And I want to be honest with you, not one player on our team can stop him. It's going to take 2, it's going to take 3, it's going to take a team. This guy is a force. This guy is the most complete. He's listening to what the opposing team is saying, and he's listening to comments that were actually made about him. Well, he's unselfish. He'll give the ball up. He's, he doesn't have to always be the star. He hurt. So he's in the lot. But what he did, he put on these goggles and he saw himself. So they were trying to get him to just imagine, Kevin, just imagine that one day you could do this or be here or be there or be there. See what I mean? Yeah. So what we're trying to do in our own way, without the financial ability to give everybody a pair of virtual goggles, is to help students put on a pair of virtual goggles, see themselves in the future. Somebody's going to change education in the United States. Why not me? I've been at every level. I've been in some of those several years. Several years for certain classes. Yeah. I'm probably a Greek scholar. I've had to take basic, when you try to teach Greek and Hebrew to a dyslexic, that's cruel and unusual punishment. That's like an LSD trip. So I'm an expert in some of these things because I've taken them more than maybe any other living being on the planet because it took me that long to get through it. But somebody's going to change education for the future. Somebody's going to combine motivation and entertainment. And everybody puts down in our world, that's just they're just entertaining those kids. But one of the basic root meanings of the word to entertain means to teach or to enable one to learn. Now, amusement parks, that means no think. Muse means to think. You put an alpha in front of any word, it means the opposite, right? Theist, believer in God, atheist. Gnostic, I don't know. Gnostic means to know. You put an A in front of it, it means I don't know, agnostic, right?
Right.
Amusement, apathy. Pathos means feeling. But you put an alpha, an A in front of it, it means no feelings, right? So we're not talking about amusement, we're talking about entertainment. So what we're trying to do is to help students and youth workers put on some goggles and see themselves in the future. So we try to teach students, this is why I love 201 in DC. Somebody's going to be general, somebody's going to be admiral, somebody's going to be the judge, somebody's going to be the president, somebody's going to be the surgeon general, have to make a decision on a life-threatening crisis that's coming and act quickly, see what's coming and get us ready for. I mean, whatever your field, somebody's going to be the one who change. Why not you? Somebody's going to be president. Somebody's going to be on the court. I mean, why not you? But when they begin to sense, well, maybe I could do that. I never will forget when I realized that, oh man, I may not ever be a Billy Graham, but I can still speak to crowds that size,
Yes.
So that's what we're trying to do, put on these virtual reality. So I just encourage people to know the future belongs to those that are prepared. And you got to prepare yourself today. What we do today determines our tomorrow. So if we can give people a sweet taste in their mouth for learning and for preparation, then we can do anything. First of all, thanks for a chance to talk to the folks that are following your podcast. And again, I always enjoy being with you. So thanks for all this.
Thanks for joining us today on Youth Worker on Fire. Remember to catch us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and TuneIn. You can also catch us on our website at youthworkeronfire.com. I'm Doug Edwards, and see you next time on Youth Worker on Fire.
You've been listening to the Youth Worker on Fire podcast. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and tell your friends. Also, leave a comment and tell us what you think. Stay tuned for more informative episodes.